This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss everything in the wide world of sports. My name is Ben.
And I'm Alex.
And it is Halloween, and we are here in the studio. So I was playing this fun little game on Google before we started the show. You're like this wizard cat. You have to draw lines and formations and stuff to defeat ghosts. So if you want to have a little fun, maybe you're on your work break, maybe you're just bored, go on Google. It's kind of cool. I mean, you know what I mean?
That kind of thing.
There's a game I know it's on Google as well. It's when like you have no internet and the little dinosaur
jump game.
Yeah,
on
it's
Google
a good one
Chrome.
too. It's a good one too. So
I like that one. It makes me happy.
pretty clever.
Whoever thought of it, yeah.
Pretty clever idea.
It's a thing to do when you don't have internet. Dinosaur jump.
Or when you do, you could just play Cat Harry Potter killing ghost drawing game with your wand.
Harry Potter, because he's a cat. He's hairy.
I don't think that was the intent, but okay.
That was my current intent.
I mean, it works for something. So, anyways, back to the show. So we will talk a lot about the NFL today. We will recap week number 8 as well as preview tonight's Halloween matchup between the Bears and the Vikings. Also talking the World Series. We had last night, Game 5, the Cubs survive and face elimination with a Game 5 victory, 3-2 last night. We'll break that down as well as some of the games Friday and Saturday, and then a little bit of preview maybe for tomorrow. You'll do an in-depth preview, obviously, on the show, but we'll maybe just pitching matchup, predictions, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll also talk a little college football. We will have the first college football playoff rankings come out tomorrow, so we'll maybe look at the AP Top 25 poll as well as review some of the games. But tomorrow is when we really find out what some of these college football committees think about some of the top schools here with the first...
In relation to the playoffs.
Right, with the first college football playoff ranking. So, with that being said, let's jump right into the NFL.
Yeah, so it was a pretty good weekend of football in my eyes. The first game, again, was in England, and if you are a fan of horror, imagine flying all the way to England just for another tie. I personally don't dislike ties. Jeremiah hates ties, and as soon as this happened, I texted him, I was like, we got another tie, all capitalized, and he was all mad. I love ties. This game obviously ended in a tie. The Raiders game, in which I'll get into in a couple minutes, almost ended in a tie. I was sitting there hoping for a tie. And shoot, man, even the Sunday night game was close and went into overtime. I'm sitting there going, tie.
Yeah,
because I just think they're funny.
So the Redskins and Bengals tie at 27. Here's what I thought was kind of funny. So obviously you said the game was in England. Mm-hmm. Of course the game in England would end in a tie because obviously soccer can end in ties. So I'm sure for like the native supporters, they're like, oh, okay, a tie, like something I haven't seen before, normal.
Funnily enough, it was probably the best game in London this year, so far. It was probably their biggest in terms of attendance. It was in Wembley Stadium.
I just thought that was pretty clever.
It was.
So this was actually the first time that we've had 2 ties in one season since 1997, and we actually have them in back-to-back weeks. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I thought that was kind of interesting, but like I said, I thought it was interesting that it happened in England. Like, oh, they're accustomed to those. That's okay. They're not, like, disappointed. Like, if this happened in Cincinnati, they'd be like, oh, man, a tie. Like, why can't they just keep playing? Like, I hate ties. It shouldn't happen. But they're like, ties happen all the time. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I thought kind of the same thing. You had fans that cheered the missed field goal. Like, they're like, yeah. They're all excited.
Like, you don't even know what's going on.
I was watching them, too, yeah.
They're just having a ball. So.
And the Redskins tied this one despite Kirk Cousins throwing for 458 yards and 2 scores. It's not bad. And
well, I mean, he did have an extra quarter to use, too. So
yeah. Well, we'll talk about extra quarters worth of use here in a minute when we get to the Raiders.
Definitely.
We moved to the Chiefs Colts game, one of the first of the stateside games, and the Chiefs win this one 30-14 without Alex Smith for the majority of the game. He got hurt early in the game.
Also suffered a concussion, too.
Yeah, well, they said it was, this is his ear. I thought it was just his head the entire time. And then he came back in and made the right choice, but did the exact same thing where you slide to kind of give yourself up, and somebody still hit him, and he was out for the rest of the game. I definitely didn't think he should have come back in probably the first time if it was something like that, but they kept him out for the rest of the game for, like you said, a concussion. Nick Foles played well, though, in relief, 16 for 22, 223 yards and 2 scores. Andrew Luck was the leading rusher for the Colts with only 60 yards on 9 carries. And Travis Kelce had a pretty impressive day, 7 receptions, 101 and 1.
No, the Colts are they're just so bad. Now they sit at 3-5, and
I feel bad for Andrew Luck, man.
He's literally the only guy in the team. Like, I feel really, really bad for him. But,
go ahead.
I mean, we've seen this even with Peyton Manning. Like, Peyton Manning and the offense was great, and he had to carry them, but they never had a defense, and now it's just
2006 was their best defense, and they were ranked in, like, the mid-teens. Like,
and now it's like it's like the same thing, but even with less of an offense. It's like Andrew Luck, maybe
only
you can mix in.
Have Marvin Harrison and, any kind of Reggie Wayne's out there and Dallas Clark's,
It's like now you can mix in a little T.Y. Hilton, and then it's like, okay.
That's it.
Me and you can maybe make the roster. It's like that.
Moncrief is okay now. Like, we'll see if he adds anything to it. But, yeah, that drops them to 3-5. The Chiefs moved to 5-2, which they're right up there in the AFC West race.
That AFC West race is definitely tough. There's 3 teams with 2 losses because the Raiders, yet again, on the road, in an Eastern time zone, win. They're 5-0 on the road now, 6-2 overall. They defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 30-24 with 1 minute left in overtime. They go for it on 4th and 4, and he hits Roberts for a touchdown pass. Derek Carr, he throws for a franchise record 513 yards and 4 scores.
That's somebody who benefited from another quarter because he was at 400 before overtime started.
Absolutely. Amari Cooper, 12 catches for 173 yards and 1 score. I got to say right now, if the season ended, Derek Carr's my MVP.
He's definitely one of that. Yeah, he's definitely one of the halfway MVPs of the year for sure. I mean, the Raiders moved to 6-2, and like you said, they're undefeated on the road still. The Buccaneers have yet to win one at home, and they are 3-4. 3 of those losses coming at home. It's just another chapter of the saga of the Buccaneers. In the last few years. Like we said, currently as it stands, AFC West, you have 6-2, Oakland in first place via tiebreak. I'm not sure how they did that tiebreak. Denver is right there with them at 6-2, and we'll get into their game in a minute. Kansas City 5-2, and then San Diego, even though they're playing some good ball, are there at the bottom at 2-5. So very impressive. I have to agree with you on that in terms of Derek Carr. He has to be in consideration as of right now.
Yeah, definitely lighting it up. A game yesterday that maybe surprised a few people is the New Orleans Saints defeat the Seattle Seahawks 25-20. The Saints score on their last 6 possessions to win the game. Yeah. Drew Brees, 265 and 1 touchdown. And Tim Hightower, not Mark Ingram, the top running back for New Orleans, 26 carries for 102 yards.
Well, see, I'm not my brother, too. He was very frustrated by this because he's an Ingram fantasy owner.
Ouch.
This is not my kind of thing. Maybe 1-2 drives, but he fumbled the ball and did not return to the game. So unless he was hurt, if it was some kind of punishment thing, that's not my thing. That's not like you fumble it once. Somebody who's literally fumbled the ball, I think it was under 7 times his entire career. It's like 6. And Tim Hightower, who's lost the ball I think close to 20 times. I don't get your message you're sending. I do see that he had a good game. 26 carries for 102 yards. That's not a hugely great average, but he did have a good game. I mean, Mark Ingram literally had 3 carries for 5 yards. That was it. I mean, you didn't really give him a chance to get going. And like I said, Tim Hightower he was only averaging 3.9 yards a carry. He did have a long of 28, so it's not like he had some huge long run that really padded the stats or anything like that. But I'm not a fan of if that was the case, I'm not a fan of the Ingram thing. If they were doing that as punishment or something,
I definitely think it was.
That's a confidence killer. I mean, I get the drive or two, sit out, get your mind right, blah 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 blah. The whole game though,
I definitely we've seen that before. Giovanni Bernard, kind of same thing with Jeremy Hill. So we've seen that before, and it's unfortunate, but the thing I don't like is how they treat fumbles a lot differently than interceptions. And you can have like 3 interceptions in a game. It's like, okay, I'm not going to bench you.
Well,
but you could have 3 fumbles in a game, and you're not going to play for like 3 weeks. So I don't know. But moving on, so the Houston Texans improved to 5-0 at home with a 20-13 win over the Detroit Lions. Houston now at 5-3 in that absolutely horrendous AFC South. Have a firm grip with a 1-game lead.
They say have a 500 record. I mean, like you said, they're at 5-3, followed tightly behind Tennessee at 4-4. So there you go.
And that division is just so bad.
They'll get run in the playoffs like they did last year, I think, in my opinion. I mean, their winning quarterback, Osweiler, he had 9 incompletions, 20 for 29, but he only threw for 186 yards and 1 score, including a touchdown. Including an interception, so a touchdown and a pick. I mean, that's not winning football over a prolonged period of time, you know.
No.
You're not going to be able to win every game like that. That's not good.
Definitely not.
And like you said, they've won another home game. They're undefeated at home, 5-3, literally 5-3. The only losses have come on the road. And the Lions drop to 4-4. Not the greatest road record either at 1-3.
So the Cleveland Browns continue doing Cleveland Brown things and lose.
That's not the thing, though.
They lose 31-28 to the New York Jets. They were up 20-7 at halftime.
That's the Cleveland Browns.
That's what I'm saying. They continue doing Cleveland Brown things, just finding ways to. And then I saw this picture. Okay, it was absolutely fantastic, and it literally summed up the Browns. It was their fan base. You know how they have like different sections.
Pound.
Yes, like different sections will hold up like a poster, and together they. So it's supposed to spell it dog pound, but they had it all backwards.
So it's like Hurrabud.
And I'm like, this is literally the Browns season. Like, because I was thinking, like, okay, if there's a week the Browns are going to get off the schneid,
I picked them to win this
week.
game. Yeah, in one of my fantasy leagues, you also do the game picks, and then you literally have a record throughout the year. And if you have a tie, you literally get a tie. So, like, everybody is whatever in 2 now. But I picked him to win this game because the Jets obviously aren't that great this year. The defense isn't amazing. And McCown was coming back, and he's been, not to say Kessler was bad or anything, but he's probably the most, able to win a game for them at this point with the way he plays. And then he played well. He had 341 yards passing and 2 scores. Terrell Pryor again, 101, over 100 again for him, 101 yards on 6 receptions. Yeah, I mean, their defense failed them, but they were in this one. Like, I'm bummed that they didn't win. And in their team, in my favorite team's division, it's not like they're threatening us with their 0-8 record now, but I wanted them to win. Like, I called it. I was like, they're going to win this game. I picked them, and they couldn't pull it out for me.
No, man, 20-7 at halftime. I saw the score, and I'm like, wow, like the Browns are actually going to finally win a game. Then I was like, well, maybe not so much. So the Jets with the win improved to 3-5. They had 2 touchdowns and 82 yards from Matt Forte, who led them on offense. So Tom Brady and the Patriots continue to impress. I think they are by far the best team in the league. They defeat the Buffalo Bills 41-25. We saw 315 yards and 4 scores from Brady, 109 and a touchdown from Rob Gronkowski. Just absolutely blowing out Buffalo.
And don't let Mike Gillislee of Buffalo, don't let him go under the radar. There's somebody filling in for LaShawn McCoy. He was pretty good on the day. One touchdown on 85 yards on 12 carries. That's not bad.
Definitely really impressive. The lone bright spot for Buffalo in this game.
Yeah, I have Tyrod Taylor in my fantasy league, and you can't blame me for playing him over Ryan Fitzpatrick. I still got more points. I still got more points with Tyrod too, but he didn't do great things for me. It started from that first drive really when they failed to. I mean, he threw a little high to. I mean, not a wide open receiver, but somebody definitely open in the end zone. So that was disappointing. But I mean, this Brady-led Patriots team, they're definitely, I would say, probably the most complete team through the first half of the season because this is at the end of tonight. That's 8 games. That's halfway. In a sense, halfway for teams in terms of games, not halfway in weeks because there are 17 weeks. Everybody has a bye week, but in terms of games, it's halfway now. So they're definitely the most impressive team, I would say.
Absolutely. Now at 7-1, Buffalo at 4-4. So then we have a rematch of the NFC Championship game last year. The Carolina Panthers finally win a game since week 2. They defeat the Arizona Cardinals 30-20. While the score might look kind of close at 10, Carolina was absolutely dominating this game. They were up by over 20 points.
Yeah, they were up by 30-7 at one point, and then they added 30-2. It was 24-7, then it was 30-14. But Yeah, at halftime, this was the exact same score as the NFC Championship game. So, I mean, it was really just a rewind of that. I mean, Cam Newton didn't play amazing in this game. Neither did Greg Olsen, who was somebody who had a very good game in the championship game. But Jonathan Stewart, 95 yards and 2 scores, like you said. Palmer led a pretty strong day. Garbage time, though, a lot of those numbers.
Yeah, a couple of touchdowns late.
Yeah. So, not impressive but you do what you got to do. The Cardinals now 3-4-1.
Crazy.
And the Panthers 2-5, currently 2-2 at home. Another team that is playing pretty well. I wouldn't say they're the best team in the AFC, but they're up there. If they had the offense that the Patriots did, maybe they would be the best team in the NFL.
Maybe that quarterback,
Exactly. The Broncos won a AFC West Division game over the Chargers, 27-19. The Broncos moved to 6-2 on the year, 4-1 at home, and the Chargers dropped to 3-5. So I'm sorry, I said they were 2-something earlier. 3-5. Trevor Siemian didn't play amazing, 276 and an interception. Melvin Gordon, 111 yards on 23 carries, no touchdowns for him. Leading receiver for the Broncos was Demaryius Thomas. And then one thing we want to mention, Wade Phillips got carted off on this one.
He took a shot.
Not the first time that's happened to him either. He is reported to be okay. He had to go to the hospital. He fell down. I think he hit his head. And not in any bad way. He is an older gentleman. So it could be much worse, of course. So they wanted to take every precaution that they could, and apparently he's doing well.
Definitely. I think yesterday the win, you can base a lot of it on the Broncos' defense. They had an interception for a touchdown. They turned over Phillip Rivers 3 times. Really just a good defensive performance. Their offense kind of struggled.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But nevertheless, they do get the win, which is important. They moved to 6-2. And then to round out the afternoon slate of games before the Sunday night matchup, the Atlanta Falcons defeat the Green Bay Packers 33-32. Matt Ryan throws a touchdown to Mohamed Sanu of 11 yards with 31 seconds left to give the Falcons the victory. This was a game that Anthony and I talked about on Friday, and I said I think both teams are going to score 30. And I said I thought the Packers would win because I thought their defense would make one more play than Atlanta's did. Obviously, I was wrong. But it was really just a case of the last team with the ball kind of won. The Packers only had 30 seconds left, so they kind of ran out of time there. But the Packers score, go up by 6. Matt Ryan leads Atlanta down with 5 minutes left, scores a touchdown right at the end. Really just an offensive shootout.
Yeah, it's definitely a game I picked the Packers to win based off of the Falcons' defense this year. But then again, the Packers have definitely struggled at times because of their defense and the injuries to that defense. Like you said, Matt Ryan went 288 and 3. Rodgers is the leading rusher for the Packers, even though I still feel like they're not giving some of their running backs enough chances to maybe help with the way that they're rotating it. Understandable. Rodgers isn't a slouch when it comes to running the ball from the quarterback spot, but I think that the way they're moving them around, they're not really getting a firm rhythm with any of them, which is maybe why he's been the leading rusher in these games. And then Jordan Nelson, of course, looked probably his best game of the year so far, 94 yards and a score. There are only 4 receptions.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers did throw for 246 and 4 touchdowns.
That was very good from him.
They were without Ty Montgomery and Randall Cobb yesterday. Mm-hmm. Montgomery was just battling an illness, wasn't really fit in time to play, and Randall Cobb's been battling a hamstring injury for the last few weeks. So those were their top 2. I mean, I realize they're wide receivers, but you can call them running backs against the Bears a couple weeks ago, as they used them as sort of running backs right now since Eddie Lacy and James Starks are out. They do have Don Jackson and Niall Davis, but as you mentioned, they're not really giving them chances. Only had 3 carries and 2 carries respectively. So their leading rusher from a running back is fullback Aaron Ripkowski.
Yeah, I don't like
6 carries for 22 yards.
Yes, he was doing good, well. I don't like the way that they use him, though. That's not yes, it's working, and do whatever you want. It's your offense. But he's not a pure running back.
He's a fullback.
He's a fullback that you're using in a shotgun running back to your right or left formation. That's not key. And I feel like they're really not. Like I said, they brought a guy in, they brought a guy up, and they're not really using them to their abilities, at least in typical fashion. It's almost like they're handcuffing themselves to that. And yeah, Rodgers played well, but you're kind of forcing him to do that, And again, this was a shootout. This came down to defense, and one team got one stop more than the other. So that's how you got to look at it.
Yeah, and I said 6 for 22, but actually 6 for 34 for Ripkowski. So he's tearing it up in the fantasy football fullback league. He's definitely a fullback one.
You know what it is?
Yesterday.
It's because he's coming through a soft line that is 4 dudes because everybody's in coverage because there's 4 receivers, and he's just hard to take down. So he's getting 6.
He's like a little bowling ball, but
but
nevertheless, the Falcons do win. They stay atop the NFC South at 5-3. Green Bay drops to 4-3. Now we'll have to see if there'll be 2 games back after the Minnesota-Chicago game tonight. We'll have to wait and see. But to round out yesterday's games, the Sunday night matchup was the battle between the rookie quarterbacks in the NFC East. We had Dak Prescott and the Cowboys defeat Carson Wentz and the Eagles 29-26 in overtime. Cowboys come back from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter. Dak Prescott, he looked like a little bit of a rookie yesterday. 19 of 39, 287. He had 2 touchdowns, passing, 1 rushing, but he did throw an interception in the end zone. But nevertheless, he leads them down. Des Bryant scores a touchdown late, and then he finds Jason Witten for the winner.
Yeah, you know what was impressive to me, at least, is that interception he threw was a bad pick, but it actually had 2 passing and 1 rushing.
Right,
so
yeah.
You said 2, 1 of each.
Oh.
2 passing, 1 rushing.
Well, my bad.
It's okay. Let's keep you honest. That interception he threw the exact same play later for a touchdown. And what's impressive to me is it's kind of not necessarily short memory, but it was like a learning moment in that aspect, in the regards where he took what he did wrong for the first time and he, did it better the next time. He grew from that. So I thought that was impressive. Carson Wentz didn't play great either, 202 and 1. The leading rusher was Darren Sproles on their side, 86 yards, and that's about it. The offense just wasn't as good as they wanted it to be necessarily that game, I suppose you could say.
So the Cowboys
on every roll,
The Cowboys improved to 6-1 now. They are sitting atop the NFC with 6 wins, 6 straight wins. As a matter of fact, they lose game 1 to the Giants. The Cowboys are at 6-1, as I said, and then the Eagles drop to 4-3. And then tonight we have the Monday night matchup: the Minnesota Vikings against the Chicago Bears. I mean, Minnesota's going to win this game, right?
Yeah, Minnesota has to win this game. When you have Jay Cutler coming back, he's going to throw you crisp 2 picks probably. He's probably going to look at his thumb a few times after doing so and being like, "Come on,
you've been healed up for a while now. Yeah. You should be doing better."
Yeah, make me look like that out there. He's talking to himself. But I got to give this one to the Vikings. I mean, they are the best team in that division by far, and they don't have to have that kind of defense to give Cutler a bad time, but they happen to have the best one. So I think they will do well. Coming off their first loss, I think they're out for some revenge, and who not better to do so than their division rival, the Bears.
Yeah, the 1-6 Bears. I think the only chance they have tonight is if they could somehow get to Sam Bradford early and often, because the Minnesota Vikings offensive line is very, very poor. But I don't give the Bears much of a chance tonight. I think Minnesota wins.
Yeah.
And breaking news is that 7-time Pro Bowl receiver Andre Johnson, who has been on the Titans recently, but then his glory days with the Texans, is actually retiring today. So a couple of former Texan greats, Arian Foster
back-to-back weeks,
and now Andre Johnson, both hanging up the cleats.
Yeah, he played this season, only 9 receptions, 85 yards, and 2 scores, so he wasn't exactly lightening up. And then
he's old. I mean, he's had a good run. Yeah, he had a good run at it.
And then for those fans of the Rams, the Dolphins, the Giants, Steelers, 49ers, and Ravens who are on bye weeks, this week you guys will have games now upcoming this week. So keep that in mind. You might have felt a little lost this weekend. Don't worry. Football's back.
For you.
For you fans, yes. I don't know who's up next in that aspect. I don't feel like looking. It's not relevant right now.
I know that the Bengals and the Redskins are on bye weeks coming back from London, but other than that, I don't know.
Well, you know what? I guess I can tell you because you brought it out of me. The Bears, the Bengals, the Patriots, the Cardinals, the Redskins, and the Texans.
Bam.
There you go. It's not relevant now, though. You know what's relevant? We are going to break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk World Series. Sound good?
World Series.
Series. All right, we'll do that, and we'll come back here in just a moment at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, and it's time to talk baseball. The Cubs on Halloween Eve avoided their nightmare and
I like
pushed
that one.
it to a Game 6 on Tuesday, which will be November 1st, tomorrow. It's going to the Indians. It's going to Cleveland. The Cubs win this one 3-2 on a strong fourth inning where they scored all three of their runs. In doing so, you had Chris Bryant homering to left center field to match a second inning home run by Mr. Ramirez over there on the Indians. You had Addison Russell reach on an infield single to third. Rizzo scored, and on this single, Ben Zobrist scored, making it 1-2. And then old time Ross, Dave Ross, Father Time himself, hit a sacrifice fly to left field, scoring Ben Zobrist on that same collection of hits that inning. You get one more run from Lindor there in the sixth on a single, scoring Rajai Davis, but it was not enough as Aroldis Chapman comes in the eighth and ninth, as he has so often done. Actually, I believe he came in the end of the seventh also.
He came in with one out in the seventh inning. They had a runner on second.
As he has done a lot this postseason. Only one time really has it failed them, and that was the game in the NLDS. The Giants happened to get to him there in the eighth with that triple from Connor Gillespie. Other than that, he's been pretty lights out in most of the appearances in which he has come in the game. So, do you think this is breathing new life into the Cubs here, or do you think it's prolonging an ultimate, or a eventuality that the Indians still win this series?
Well, I'm actually kind of torn here because a week ago...
See, me too. I remember I told you I couldn't pick somebody, and
a week
I still
ago,
don't know what to say.
So a week ago, we previewed the World Series, and I took the Indians in 7.
Yes, you
So
did.
that would mean I have to take Chicago tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I guess I will do that. It'll be Jake Arrieta versus Josh Tomlin. So a really good pitching matchup.
Matchup to Arrieta. I mean, Tomlin's been really good, but I have to give it to Arrieta. I mean, he pitched very well last time.
Right. So Arrieta won them game 2. So I guess you have to say I'll give it to Arrieta. But then you have game 7. But then that would bring up something interesting on Wednesday. But you said, do I think this is prolonging the inevitable with Cleveland winning it?
Yeah, with the way that they played, at least in those 3 games that they've won.
I guess you can say yes. So on Friday they win a really, really close game, 1-0. Coco Crisp drives home the lone run. It was the first time ever that we had a pinch hitter in Coco Crisp driving a pinch runner for the only run in a World Series game. So kind of history there. And then on Saturday, the Indians absolutely kill Chicago 7-1. A 3-run homer by Jason Kipnis late in the game absolutely just slams the door on the Cubs. And then obviously they avoid sort of getting embarrassed with 3 straight losses at home and win last night 3-2. All 3 runs in that 4th inning, as you mentioned, Alex. So I guess I'll take Chicago in Game 6. Listen, here's what it would be so ironic. So you had the Cleveland Cavaliers come back from 3-1 against the Warriors to win the NBA Finals. Then you could see Cleveland lose 3-1 if the Cubs come back and be the first team since 1985, which were the Royals, to come back from a 3-1 deficit.
In the World Series, yeah.
Yes. But you know what? I still think Cleveland is the better team right now. The Cubs are not hitting well.
They're playing like the better team, yeah.
The Cubs are absolutely not hitting well. These young bats are not producing. Even last night, Trevor Bauer gives up 3 runs in 4 innings. The 2 wins that the Cubs have this series are both against Bauer. So the 2 wins they have is when...
bad for the dude, since he cut
maybe
his
he
finger
should
up.
fly his drone around a little more, and maybe he'll do a little better. But
leave him alone.
Both of the wins are against Bauer, and the Indians are honestly just playing better. Think about this: through the entire postseason, they're 10-3, so they played 13 games.
Yeah.
They played Boston, who scored the most runs in the league. They played Toronto and beat them. Within the last 2 years, they've scored the most runs in the league. And now Chicago, who are second in the National League this year in runs, only behind Colorado. They've only given up 25 runs through those 13 games in the whole postseason. So they're giving up less than 2 runs a game on average. I still think Cleveland is playing like a better team. But with that being said, the Cubs won 103 games for a reason. You can't count them out. So you know what? That's why I'm going to stick with my prediction. I'll take Arrieta and the Cubs tomorrow, and then I'll take Kluber on short rest again to probably beat Kyle Hendricks and win the World Series in Game 7 for the Indians.
Yeah, I think when I was debating with myself last Tuesday before this got started, I think I ultimately picked the Cubs just off some very non-thought-out form of favorites in terms of advantages. I think I went by the pitching staff. So by that, I suppose I have to stand by the Cubs because I did say that. So then I would make it Cubs in 7. So that means I have to agree with you that the Cubs win this game tomorrow, which I will preview in tomorrow's episode a little more in depth, and would have to win Game 7 as well.
Yeah, they're going to have Andrew Miller rested. He did not pitch last night. Obviously, now you give him another day of rest, so he's pitching on 2 days rest. So that means he can go 2, maybe even 3 innings tomorrow if need be. Aroldis Chapman kind of surprised me last night. As I said, he came in with 1 out in the 7th inning, so he goes 2 2/3. He throws 42 pitches for a closer. That's absolutely a lot. 15 of those 42 pitches go over 100 miles an hour, which
that's his thing.
That's just what he does, and nevertheless, he does shut the door on them. So, obviously, kudos to Chicago. John Lester pitched really well, gave up 2 runs in 6 innings with 5 strikeouts. So, probably going to see the last of him in the World Series now, unless maybe he pulls off some Madison Bumgarner heroics on a couple of days rest in Game 7 if they need him and pitches a few innings. But I highly doubt it. We'll have to wait and see. But he's been their best pitcher all season long, and he came through in the clutch.
Since they traded for him, yeah.
He came through in the clutch last night to avoid elimination. The Cubs win their first World Series game in Wrigley Field since 1945.
45, there it is. I was explaining to my girlfriend, too. She's like, they had the same stadium then? I was like, yeah, same stadium. And then she goes, wow, that must be old. I was like, yeah, I mean, they do renovations. It's like that in Fenway. And Fenway has gotten renovations like the last 10 years, every 10 years, you know what I mean? Like the last 50 years, every 10 years, whatever it is. And I was explaining to her what the differences were. I was like, yeah, back then they didn't have lights in Wrigley Field. They didn't have lights until I think 87 or something. She goes, well, how'd they play? I said, they just played all their games during the day.
Right.
Which was such a big, actually, like conversation heading into this one, why they didn't have any day games. They could have capitalized like on Saturday and had a day game.
I mean, you have that prime time slot. Of course, you're going to use it every time. I realize it's the weekend. Most people are off work, but not everybody. So
I mean, that's what I was saying too.
You have that prime time slot, so of course you're going to have a night game. And they're honestly battling a lot of things. You had Clemson and Florida State at the same time, so a lot of different conflicting things you could battle with. But nevertheless, that game they actually lost, so maybe by that 7th inning you could switch over to that Florida State-Clemson game, because that game came down to the wire.
I know on Saturday I was watching this game, the Sharks hockey game,
right?
The Washington State football game, which I will talk about in a minute after the next break about the AP Top 25 poll, and the Kings basketball game. So I know I was flipping through all of them, So, I mean, yeah, they're definitely battling primetime spot no matter where they were, really, with a lot of different sports, and then Sunday, obviously, yesterday with NFL football. So it's a tricky time of year. It's what, like I said, I call it.
Is it tricky or treaty time of year?
Nice. It's like yesterday. Like I said, man, it's a sweet spot. You got basketball, you got hockey, you got football, you got baseball. Professional sports, at least. I mean, of course, Saturday.
We got soccer,
Yeah, no, seriously, I said that on the show. You have international soccer if you're a fan of soccer other than the MLS. Here in America, you have soccer, you have football, you have baseball, you have basketball, and you have hockey. You have the major premier sports professionally all on the same day. It only happens around this time of year, and it's freaking awesome.
It's a great time to be alive for a sports fan, but we'll have to take our last break, and then we'll talk about that college football. I know you're excited about the Cougs having to come back. They were down 21-6 in that game against Oregon State. I'll explain
to you what exactly happened to me that night. I'll tell you.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see right after the break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back here at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast, and I feel like the way you and I were dancing there coming back into the show was like when in Step Brothers they're doing the worldwide, and they're dancing.
Worldwide.
They're dancing, doing it. They're like doing their dancing. I thought that was pretty good. That was like us. We were just doing that right now.
Well, I mean, we've only seen that movie probably a combined total of 1,469 times.
That's very specific. I like that. That was like a lot of what our friendship was based off of in high school too.
We would just quote the movie back and forth.
Yeah, him and I and another friend of ours, we would have student store, and in between lunches, we would be doing that all day.
And even now, still.
Yeah, we did earlier, literally.
Just sort of bring back old memories.
Oh man,
they're frozen in time.
Yeah, they are.
I love that you like.
I actually
love
have
that little insight. You're like, yeah.
I have a very specific day actually in which I'm remembering, and that was a very cold day. So frozen in time.
Well, no pun intended, but it fit perfectly. So let's talk some college football, buddy.
Yeah.
So a couple of the big games here. Clemson goes on the road and defeats number 12 Florida State. They stay unbeaten. Really, their last big hurdle left in the ACC. I realize they have conference tourney game if everything goes right, but still a big win, and I think as long as they handle business, they're a lock now.
I think you're right about that. I mean, tomorrow, which we'll probably talk about on Wednesday because it'll happen after the show, but tomorrow they're going to have the first of the college football playoff rankings, so we'll get into the AP poll here in a second, and then the coaches poll is pretty identical this week, excluding a couple, 9 and 10 are flip-flopped, Nebraska and Florida, Oklahoma and Auburn and 11 and 12. You have little differences here and there. West Virginia and Florida, it's always like one and the other are flipped. 14-15 flipped. Western Michigan 17-18 flipped. That's just how they do it. But yeah, I definitely think that you're right about that. It's their biggest test was probably this weekend, and I think they got smooth sailing as well, as long as everything kind of goes how they need it to.
Yeah, they won that game 37-34. And then another big matchup was between ranked opponents was then number 4 and actually still number 4 Washington against number 17 Utah. So Washington goes on the road to Rice-Eccles Stadium and they defeat the Utes 31-24.
But Utah moves up a spot.
How ironic is that, dude?
Yeah.
Like they lose a game, but yet they move up in the rankings. I guess maybe because it was a close loss, only 7 points.
Yeah, main difference there being a late punt return touchdown for the UW.
The game was tied with 3 minutes left, and that was obviously the game-winning score. So now I guess you can say Utah, a really easy schedule. The Pac-12 is kind of down this year. I guess the last...
I've been saying about Washington this whole time.
I guess the last tough game for them is going to be the Apple Cup, the rivalry against Washington State, who's actually ranked.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that now with the AP Top 25. So the top 5, actually 6 as it stands, is the same as last week. Bama, Michigan, Clemson, Washington, Louisville, and Ohio State. Now, before I get into the rest of the poll, hear me out. Tomorrow when they have the playoff poll, because of how weak the Pac-12 has been this year and how weak UW's schedule has been in general, do you see Louisville jumping them?
No way. I mean,
no? These are 7-1 and an 8. No,
I understand, but
the
Louisville
strength of their wins are stronger than Washington's.
Louisville doesn't really have. I guess you can say the Florida State win is very impressive.
I mean,
but it was at
they
home.
Beat a number 2, and they handed it to them. They barely lost to Clemson. They have been in all their games. Yeah, they got a scare this week from Virginia, but
even against Duke a couple weeks ago, though, too.
Yeah, but who's the best team Washington has faced this year? I will tell you.
It was Utah. They just played.
Exactly, and that's it.
But still, they're
they
unbeaten.
Had Rutgers, Idaho, Portland State, Arizona. They beat number 7 Stanford, but that was the second straight week of downfalling of Stanford. They beat Oregon, who's not Oregon of prior years. Oregon State this week, and then they beat 17th ranked Utah, but it was a close game. So how good is this Husky team really? That's what I want to see. Could you see an Ohio State getting back into the conversation? You know what I mean? It's going to be really interesting to see this first playoff poll.
You bring up some good points, and I realize it's just the first poll, so it doesn't really matter because every team has to still play out the rest of their season. Here's what I think. I think Washington, if they go unbeaten, they're in. But you know what?
Okay.
I don't think they're elite at all.
No, not at all.
I think by far the best 3 teams in college football are the top 3 teams right now: Alabama, Michigan, and Clemson.
Well,
I think
Ohio State's also play Michigan. Do you think
I understand.
Ohio State? Jeremiah and I've been saying all year that we think that Ohio State can still beat Michigan.
Ohio State can definitely still beat Michigan, but when I look at this Ohio State team, I think they still lack a true identity on offense. They have kind of JT Barrett,
failed to get in the end zone this week.
And then from there, it's like, who do you go to? Like, is this a running team? Is this a pass-first team? Mm-hmm. After the loss to Penn State last week, they go at home against Northwestern, a team you'd think they would handle, and they win 24-20. So not really a convincing game. As it stands right now, I would definitely pick Michigan to defeat Ohio State at the end of the year, even though it'd be on the road.
Okay.
So I would definitely still pick Michigan as it stands right now, as I said. I think the best 3 teams are obviously 1, 2, and 3, Bama, Michigan, and Clemson. I think if Washington goes in there with those 3 teams, Washington's good, but they're not elite. No. These 3 teams are elite. I think if Washington goes in there, they'll get killed. But you know what? If they
imagine Washington playing Bama.
If they go unbeaten, you have to put them in. So we'll have to. I realize the Pac-12's down.
Well, remember TCU and Baylor a couple years ago?
Exactly, but still, they'd be unbeaten. They'd win the conference title. When you look at TCU and Baylor, they kind of split that last year or the couple years ago. So,
well, think about it too with the title game. They're going to have to play Utah again, right? Or is that
Utah would be the South? So no, they would have to. Well, actually, they would. Yeah, they would
play Utah again. So I mean, they could very well lose that game this time.
At a neutral field, I think it'd be a little more competitive, obviously. So, yeah. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But one team I actually do love.
What's that?
Is number 10 Florida.
Yeah, they're playing really well.
Their defense.
They have Mr.
Jack Del Rio's son, Luke Del Rio, at quarterback.
Luke Del Rio. He's playing well.
Their defense is absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. They have the top scoring defense in the nation. They give up 11 points a game. They beat Georgia 24-10 in a big rivalry game.
This is a Tostito Bowl game team right here.
This team right here in Florida. I think if they go into that SEC championship game and challenge Alabama, they will give them a dogfight test because their offense is not very good. Their offense is kind of suspect, but that defense keeps them in games, and that's why I think they're 6-1. The lone loss to Tennessee, a game where they were winning by 21, and then Tennessee came back. That's when they were in their sort of run of doing miraculous things. But now they've dropped 3 in a row after their loss to South Carolina on Saturday, so they're kind of out of it now. But I don't know, man. I love this Florida team, though.
Yeah, and some other teams to look at in these countdowns. So we have just to finish out, Texas A&M moved up 2 spots from 9 to 7. We have Wisconsin moving up 3 to 8, and Nebraska down from 7 to 9. There, kind of swapping with Texas A&M.
After Wisconsin defeated Nebraska for the first time, 23-17.
And that rounds out your top 10, like you said. There with Florida sitting at 10. You have Auburn up 4 to 11, and you have Oklahoma up 4 to 12. Baylor dropped 5 to 13. West Virginia dropped 4 to 14. LSU is up 4 to 15. Utah did move up 1, although losing this weekend to UW. Western Michigan still hanging in there, actually moving up 3 spots from 20 to 17. North Carolina up 3 to 18. Florida State down 7 after their loss this weekend to 19. Penn State moves up 4 from 24 to 20. Colorado 21, moving up 2 from 23. Oklahoma State was not ranked last week. They are currently doing just that at 22. Virginia Tech now at 23, moving up 2 spots from the last spot on the list. 24 is where Boise State sits now after losing a very tight game, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, to Wyoming.
Yeah, and Washington State making their season debut at 25, sitting at 6-2, still undefeated in conference play after not being ranked at all the last weeks, being the team just on the cusp, and Tennessee and Navy dropping out, who were 18 and 22 respectively. Now, before we go, I was going to tell you what I was doing with these games. So like I told you, I was watching all 4 of these games at the same time. Not literally, but I was going back and forth.
Of course.
And the Washington State game at halftime was 20-6 or 24-6, right? So I was like, okay, well, it's halftime. I'll watch the Kings game. The Kings were, at most of the game against the Timberwolves, were down about 20. Or not 20, sorry, about 10.
They came down from 18
Yeah,
total.
every once in a while, as far as 18, yeah. Every once in a while they'll jump around, get a little closer, about 7, 8. But it was always close to 10, if not 10 plus a bit, And then I went to go get some food because there was no food in the house. So I went to go get Taco Bell. And I come back, and that was when they went on like a 27-7 run. And they were winning. And I was like, whoa, hot diggity dog, right? I watched the end of that game because, I'm a diehard Kings fan. I was very excited. And plus, it was the last home game for a little while. So I like watching the games in the new stadium, even if it's on TV still. And so I was like, oh, great. And they won that game. I was like, oh, man, the Washington State game's still on. Okay, I'll turn back to it, because my brother's the one that went to Washington State. I'm a fan of the team, but he's the one that went there, so I kind of lived my college football through him because my college didn't. It was a trade school, didn't have college football or anything. And I turned it back, and it was 21-24. I was like, oh Lord! And then next thing I realized it was 28-24, and I was like, here we go. So I stopped watching both games. The teams came back, ended up winning, and you're welcome, Sacramento Kings and Washington State.
You're like the jinx. Whenever you watch, they do terrible. And whenever you don't, they just light it up.
It was just I just had to stop watching for a little while and come back because I was watching and they continued on their winning ways. So
maybe not, but I
watched every Washington State game this year, man. And they're 6-2.
They have 2 losses. So
I actually didn't watch the Boise State game. Excuse me. So one of those losses I didn't get to watch. So if anything, it has nothing to do with me.
We beg to differ, but hey, maybe you are right. But a couple of big takeaways from me from this week in college football. Baylor loses to Texas. West Virginia loses to Oklahoma. So Baylor drops to 13 in the poll. West Virginia 14, as you mentioned. I guess you can kind of say the Big 12 is out of it now in regards to the college football playoff.
They were so strong at one point, too. A lot of teams, so strong.
Their lack of a conference title game, no really elite school, and now they're not going to do any sort of expansion. I think this is really kind of the preliminary sort of findings of the end of the Big 12. I think within the next few years we'll see these power conferences get even bigger. I think you can see Texas and Oklahoma maybe jump to the Pac-12. A couple of schools go to the SEC, maybe the Big 10. I think this is just kind of the beginning of the end of the Big 12, and I don't think they're going to get in the college football playoff this year.
Oh, no, I don't think so. Not with the way their teams have kind of fallen from grace there.
Exactly. So I think this is just going to be the end. Because Texas and Oklahoma, their schools are made to get into the college football playoff. They are elite coaching jobs. They are elite programs. And if they're not going to get it in this conference because the conference is not really supportive, doesn't have a conference title game, they're going to look elsewhere. The money's there. I think they're going to bolt soon.
Mm-hmm. I could see that happening. We'll have to see how that goes. Definitely there was a lot of talk of expansion and then no expansion and all these different things. It'll be interesting to see exactly how that happens.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to update you, as always, at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Yes, but as always, it's time for us to go. I'll be back tomorrow, just me. We're talking Game 6 of the World Series. We're talking recapping of tonight's Monday Night Football game. And I might look at where I see the playoff rankings of the first of the year going as we head into tomorrow. Of course, that'll happen. We can recap that and talk and react to that on Wednesday, but I can maybe preview it a bit tomorrow. But as always, for Anthony, who is not here until Wednesday, we'd like to wish you a very happy Halloween on behalf of Ben and I and Anthony here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We'll see you on our next episode again. I'll be back tomorrow. Ben will be here on Wednesday with Anthony and I. Until then, I'd like to thank you for listening. As always, I'm Alex.
I am Ben.
And we will see you guys next time. You have a good holiday and enjoy your candy.
Yum, yum.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.